The next selector we'll learn is one of the most commonly used alongside the element selector. It is the class selector. So we haven't really seen classes yet. Basically, a class is a similar idea to an ID where we add something into our markup so that we can hook into it in our CSS, except that a class can be applied to multiple elements. It's creating a class of elements. So I can have different groups and style them similarly, which is really common for a typical website. You're not going to have every single thing be completely different. You often will have groups of things or classes that you style similarly. For example, I've got a repeated pattern here. So this is a span, and this is a span, and this is a span. It also happens that this right here is a span, this is a span, and this is a span because I want these to be little tags. I don't know if you've seen this on Reddit or similar websites where in the post you can tag the title with something. If not, hang in there. I'll hopefully explain it. But let's say I want to make all of these spans grayed out and maybe a little bit smaller. Or maybe not gray, but I want them to be maybe like this lighter blue color. So I'm going to select all spans to begin with and give them a color. Make sure I add in the pound sign there. So no classes or anything yet. Okay, so it grayed out those spans, but I only want it to apply to these spans. What I'd like to happen to these is I want to give them a background color, a red or a green or something bright, a background color, and indicate that they are a tag. They are not actually part of the title, but somebody tagged this with funny or someone tagged this with dogs or I don't know. It's just, I don't really know what it's supposed to be, but maybe you've seen something like that before. So I need to single these out in a group somehow, and that's where class comes in. So over here, I'll find those spans. Let's see, where are you? Here's one right there. And I can actually do multiple cursors, which is what I'm going to do. Here's the next one. I'm holding Option and clicking. And then I'm going to type class equals, and I'm going to come up with some class name. How about tag? Nice and easy. Just like that. So now they each have this class called tag. It does nothing right now. They look exactly the same. But I can use this selector syntax where we use a dot or a period and then the name of the class. So very similar to an ID selector, except we use a dot instead of this hash symbol, but we still use the name of that attribute, whether it's the ID or the class. So in my CSS, I can select dot and then tag. And I can give them a background color. And I'm going to steal this reddish color from here. Paste that in, and I think I'm going to shrink them down as well. And I'm going to give them a very light text color, like that. And I'm going to make them smaller. I'm not sure exactly, but let's do font size of maybe 16 pixels. Might be too small. Okay, so it still does not look very good, but we haven't yet covered things like rounding corners and adding more spacing, which is what I would do. Make these larger. For now, though, this is good enough. The point is not really to make it pretty, it's to talk about the selectors. So by defining a class, we're able to group together content, and they don't have to be the same type of element. For example, I have a span, span, and span, but I could also give this class to something else. Not that I really would, but how about this anchor tag? Class equals tag. Save, and it gets those styles too. So I'm going to undo that. But I don't want you to think that, a class has to consist of all spans or all H2s or something like that. It's just a label. It's like a little just sticker we're putting on whatever elements we want to return to later. It's just like when I was 10 years old and my parents split up. My dad went around the house and tagged everything that he wanted or everything he was taking with him with a little blue dot. And my mom went around and tagged everything she was taking with a little yellow dot. And then, of course, everything had a blue and yellow dot on it, and it didn't really solve any problems. It just caused more fights. But that's the idea. We're tagging these things with some sort of class so we can reference them later. I do see students mix these up, the dot for a class versus the hash symbol octothorpe for an ID. Make sure you keep that straight. In my experience, you'll use classes far more often than IDs, but both of them are important to understand.